You wake up on the same mattress, same cracked ceiling overhead, same air, heavy with dust and stale food. The house groans like it always does, but you don't ask why. You don't ask for anything. You don't even speak, because this is your world. You were born into a bloodline that folded in on itself, generation after generation, until the line nearly broke. Your body carries the evidence. One eye drifts, your jaw never quite closes, words form but never leave your mouth. The world sees a headline, a freak show, a symbol of what happens when family trees stop branching, but they don't see you. They don't see the silence you live in, the weight you carry every single day. They couldn't, because they wouldn't survive it, not for a week, not even for a day. But you do, and this is your story. Before we dive deeper into this story, take a moment, hit that like button. If you're intrigued already, subscribe if you want more untold stories like this, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. It's free for you, but it helps this channel reach more people who care about uncovering the truths most never see. You wake up in a room where nothing changes, the air thick with dust and silence. The wooden floor creaks under weightless steps, and the walls hold secrets no one ever bothered to tell. The mattress beneath you sags in the middle, a hollow groove carved by years of stillness. Above, the ceiling bears stains shaped like maps, each blotch marking the slow passage of forgotten time. Your body aches before you even move, joints stiff as though carved from old timber. The world outside continues unseen, but inside these walls, life has no rhythm except silence and breath. You shuffle toward the single chair near the wall, the one molded to your back. It's worn smooth in places, cracked in others, the only throne you've ever known in this kingdom of stillness. Your brothers drift through the house like shadows. One hums softly under his breath, another lets out a bark that echoes like thunder, but no words ever form. Words are strangers here. The walls sag inward, paint curling from damp, but no one notices anymore. It's the same house that cradled your father's cough, your brother's groans, and now your own heavy silence. Every object has its place, untouched for years. A faded clock ticks without hands. A chipped mug sits crooked on the counter. Everything is frozen, like the family itself, locked in repetition. You don't speak because language never arrived. Instead, your eyes wander and your hands tremble, tracing grooves in the wood, tracing history etched not by choice, but by bloodlines that twisted inward endlessly. The dog outside lets out a sound that is half laugh, half bark. Inside, the television flickers without meaning, voices foreign and bright, faces that don't mirror the distorted reflections inside this home. Your silence is misread as emptiness, but it holds more weight than the walls themselves. It's not nothingness. It's an unspoken language born of grunts, hums, and movements, translated only by your brothers. You remember the names carved into family history: John, Henry, cousins turned fathers, fathers turned uncles. Each man became another link in a chain that circled itself until escape was impossible. The house itself feels alive, its boards groaning like an old man in pain. It shelters the brothers within, keeps them bound together, and in return, they keep the silence alive. One brother barks again, louder this time, startling the dog outside. Another rocks in place, humming a tune that doesn't exist. Together they compose a chorus of strange music only they understand. Meals appear without asking, placed on the table by hands that never question. Bread, beans, canned vegetables. Food not chosen but given. You eat slowly, carefully, as though every bite must be rehearsed. The chair by the wall welcomes you back each day. Its sagging frame is familiar, the cracked cushion soft where your body has pressed for decades. You sit, waiting without knowing what for. Sometimes a visitor comes, a man with a camera. He smiles and greets, but his words glide past without landing. He lifts the black box to his eye, and suddenly silence becomes spectacle. The lens captures your stillness. It doesn't record thoughts, only twitching eyes and trembling hands. Millions will watch, not to listen, but to gawk, turning silence into entertainment, endurance into something monstrous. Your brother, humming, glances at the camera, then back to his routine. Nothing changes for him. The outside world doesn't exist. His hums are the only music that fills the hollow space. You lean forward, trying once again to push sound from your throat. A grunt escapes, rough and broken. It frightens you with its own weakness, and you retreat, locking silence deeper inside. The man with the camera doesn't wait for answers. He doesn't ask questions you could never reply to. He only films, and when he leaves, the silence deepens, swallowing every trace of intrusion. At night, the mattress welcomes you back like a grave. You stare at the ceiling stains once more, each shadow a reminder of days looping endlessly, each breath a small act of survival. No clock marks the hours. No calendar hangs on the wall. Time doesn't move forward. It folds back on itself, circling like the family that created you, circling until it no longer makes sense. Your body has never felt like home. Fingers twitch when they should hold steady. Knees ache though you've hardly moved. Every part of you feels misaligned, a cage designed to contain instead of carry. Your brothers carry their own burdens. One barks when words won't come. Another rocks endlessly, his body swaying like a pendulum. Each man trapped in silence, each man surviving by simply existing. The world beyond the holler doesn't see survival. It sees strangeness, freakishness. They stare through screens, mocking what they don't understand, forgetting that silence can carry more strength than constant noise ever could. The porch sags outside, overlooking trees that never stop whispering. But no one walks beyond the steps. Roads lead nowhere, just as bloodlines loop endlessly back, sealing this house in its own universe. When visitors drive by, some laugh, some take photos. They point as though the house were a carnival attraction. But inside, life remains the same. Quiet, repetitive, unbroken, a survival they could never endure. Each morning is a victory, though no one cheers. Simply waking, sitting, breathing becomes triumph in a world that sees only tragedy. The silence isn't weakness. It's endurance beyond what outsiders could imagine. Your brothers hum, grunt, shuffle, and rock. Their language is rhythm, not speech. You learn to answer with a stare, a tilt of the head, a shared glance that says more than words. Pain never leaves you. Knees tighten, back stiffens, jaw droops, but you carry it silently. You can't tell anyone about the aches. Instead, you absorb them, folding pain into the fabric of life. A low hum escapes you sometimes, vibrating against the still air. It's not melody, but it's yours. It reminds you that you exist beyond silence, that some spark of sound still lingers inside. No books line the shelves. No lessons were taught. Education never reached this house, but knowledge grew in other ways, in watching, in sensing, in knowing the rhythm of your brother's movements. People call you names: freak, mutant, inbred. They reduce lives to insults, never understanding the endurance required to exist in silence, to endure bodies that refuse cooperation, to breathe when breathing feels pointless. The television flickers again, bright colors against faded walls. You don't follow the stories, but the shifting images soothe you. They remind you that another world exists, even if it never belonged to you. Your brothers don't ask for explanations, and neither do you. Each man moves in patterns, predictable and safe. It's not conversation, but it's understanding, the only language that keeps the family bound. The silence stretches longer at night. The dog outside grows quiet, the brothers shuffle less, and only the sound of your breath fills the room. It's a lullaby made of endurance. The camera returns again one morning. The man smiles, adjusts his device, and records. He captures stillness, but not spirit, silence, but not thought. He leaves, believing he's shown the truth. He hasn't. Truth is found in the hums, the stares, the small movements unseen by outsiders. Truth is endurance without applause, survival without recognition. Truth is you, silent yet alive, proving existence itself is victory. The world will never understand the house of silence. It will never feel the weight of stillness, the language without words. But you live it every day, and that makes you stronger. This house doesn't echo with laughter or speech, but with survival. Each creak of the boards, each hum from your brother, each breath you take is proof that endurance is louder than silence. You return once more to the chair by the wall. The cushion dips where your body has molded it. You sit, watching, breathing, surviving. The house of silence lives on through you. Two brothers were born in the hills, identical in every way. John and Henry, faces like mirrors, voices that echoed each other's tone. Together they shaped a family whose branches never stretched outward. The holler where they lived was cut off from roads and cities. Mountains pressed close and rivers carved deep valleys. Isolation was not a choice but a condition, defining every generation's fate. John married a cousin from nearby. Henry did the same. Their families merged until separation no longer existed. Bloodlines folded back like paper creased too many times, leaving marks that could never smooth. What began as convenience became tradition. Cousins joined cousins, nephews turned fathers, uncles became grandfathers twice over. Men didn't travel, they stayed in the holler, repeating patterns their ancestors unknowingly passed down. This pattern wasn't malice, nor ignorance, it was survival. Roads were rough, money scarce, and strangers rarely came. When families have no options, they cling to themselves, repeating bonds until they blur. The family tree looked less like branches and more like a circle. Roots twisted inward, wrapping around themselves. Each new boy born carried not diversity, but the same genes repeated endlessly. The whispers of outsiders rarely reached these hills, and when they did, the family ignored them. To them, nothing was wrong. To them, this was life as it had always been. Over time, the features began to shift. Eyes drifted, jaws slackened, muscles weakened. Boys born into this line carried marks invisible to outsiders, but visible within the house, subtle reminders of tangled blood. As years passed, names repeated across generations. John begat John, Henry begat Henry. Cousins married, and the names circled back endlessly until no one could untangle who was uncle, cousin, or brother. Isolation deepened during winters, when snow blocked the roads entirely. Families remained indoors for months, leaning on one another for warmth, food, and survival. Those walls contained both heritage and curse. A visitor once traced the family tree, only to find branches looping back. He noted cousins marrying, uncles fathering nephews, and wrote consanguinity on his chart, but numbers couldn't capture lived reality. The men who lived here never thought of charts. They thought of wood to cut, roofs to fix, food to find. Their choices were born of necessity, not calculation, not cruelty. When boys grew older, they worked mines or fields, rarely venturing beyond the holler. Leaving meant abandoning family, and so they stayed, marrying into the same circle, ensuring the loop continued. Each generation carried echoes of the last. Eyes mirrored old faces, bodies mirrored old struggles. It wasn't new life, but repetition, a living reminder of choices made long before anyone alive remembered. The holler became its own world. Outsiders whispered stories of strange families, but the men inside didn't see strangeness. They saw only survival, the duty to carry the family line forward. When John and Henry aged, their sons repeated the same vows, standing with cousins, binding blood closer. Weddings were small, gatherings of kin, the vows spoken not to strangers but to brothers. The men didn't call it inbreeding. They didn't have that word. To them it was simply family, marriage to those nearby, repeating what had been done without question for decades before. Fathers passed tools to sons, sons became fathers themselves, and the pattern cycled again. Each boy born inherited not just land and poverty, but the same tangled legacy of blood turned inward. The mountains around them acted like walls, trapping families inside. Outsiders might call it isolation, but the men who lived here simply called it home, a place where roots were too deep to leave. One generation later, the signs became impossible to ignore. Boys born with strange stares, crooked jaws, silent tongues. No one gave names to conditions. They simply said, "That's him," and carried on. The family buried their losses quietly. Infants gone before their first winter. Boys who never spoke. Men who never walked steady. Each grave marked another echo of choices stretching back a century. No one blamed ancestors. No one cursed fate. The men accepted silence, accepted crooked stares, accepted weakness as part of their blood. Life wasn't measured in health, but in endurance. Stories passed down whispered of the original twins, John and Henry. Men said the line began strong, two identical boys building families from nothing. The cracks came later, unseen until too late. Poverty wrapped itself tight around the family. With little schooling, little work beyond the mines, the men had no ladder to climb. They built houses from scraps and filled them with silence. A boy born here learned quickly that silence was safer than questions. There were no answers anyway. The family did not explain why cousins married cousins. It was simply accepted truth. Generations blurred into one another. The names repeated like echoes in a canyon, the same faces staring back across decades. Each man thought he was living his life, yet repeating another's. Doctors rarely visited. Those who did stared longer than they should, whispering words no one understood. Then they left, leaving boys behind with no treatment, no help, just the same broken silence. Time itself seemed circular in the holler. Seasons repeated, winters pressed close, summers stretched long. The family tree mirrored the seasons, never branching outward, always looping back into itself without end. The men inside didn't see tragedy. They saw kinship, a bond no outsider could break. To them, every grunt, every hum, every crooked glance was simply part of being Whitaker. Those who left rarely returned. When they did, they looked at the house differently. But those who stayed carried silence forward, unbroken, binding the line tighter with every cousin's vow repeated. By the time modern eyes arrived, the damage was set in stone. Generations had folded back for decades, creating a legacy no man alive had chosen, yet every man alive carried. The origins of this house of silence were written not in books, but in faces. Every crooked stare, every trembling hand traced back to two brothers and choices made out of need. John and Henry became myths in their descendants' memories. Strong men, hard-working miners, men who married cousins because no one else lived nearby. Their decisions carried farther than they ever imagined possible. Each boy born afterward bore invisible chains, tethered not to destiny, but to repetition. Life was survival, but survival came at a cost written into their very bodies, unspoken but undeniable. Outsiders studied family trees, but men here studied survival. They cut wood, patched roofs, tilled fields, all while unknowingly repeating the same cycle, creating sons who would carry silence even further. The legacy of John and Henry wasn't just blood, it was endurance. Despite broken bodies, despite silence, their line continued, proving that survival itself could become both curse and inheritance. What began as isolation in the hills became a story told in whispers across the world. Yet inside the holler, men still woke, still sat in silence, still carried the line forward. The beginning of the line was simple. Two brothers, one holler, survival. But what followed was not simple. It became silence etched into generations of men who never escaped its weight. This chapter of history doesn't exist in books or museums. It lives in the eyes of men still sitting in sagging chairs, men who carry a story written into their blood. The line began with love between brothers and loyalty to kin, but it grew into something heavier, a silence that swallowed generations whole. That silence remains, echoing still in the holler. The body you carry has never felt like a friend. Muscles misfire, eyes wander, bones ache before their time. It isn't laziness or neglect, but the inheritance of blood folded too tightly. Every morning begins with stiffness. Knees lock, back curves inward, joints creak as though rusted. You rise not with energy, but with effort. Every movement reminding you of limits written long before birth. Your hands tremble when they try to grasp objects. A spoon slips, a cup tilts, food scatters before reaching your mouth. Brothers see this and say nothing. Silence fills the space where sympathy should exist. The body becomes a cage when it won't obey. Each command from your mind reaches bones that resist, muscles that twitch. You're trapped inside, alive and aware, yet unable to fully express existence. Outsiders watch and assume emptiness. They see crooked postures, vacant stares, jerking motions, but they don't feel the heat of pain in knees or the tight coil in shoulders carried every day. Doctors came once, stared longer than they spoke, whispered words over clipboards, then left without names for conditions. You return to silence, body unchanged, trapped in the same crooked frame, awaiting another day. Each brother carries a different burden. One hums to soothe himself, rocking endlessly. Another barks without meaning, words tangled in throat. You remain stiller, quieter, your body locked in discomfort that never ends. The face mirrors the struggle. Eyes drift unevenly, jaw slackens, lips rarely close. Outsiders mistake these signs for absence, but within them lies constant effort to hold yourself upright against an unyielding frame. You remember trying once to force a word into existence. The grunt that escaped frightened even you. The sound felt foreign, a betrayal of silence, proof your body refused to cooperate. When you walk, feet shuffle instead of stepping. Legs are thin from disuse, balance fragile. A hand against the wall steadies your path, each movement deliberate, each journey measured by fear of falling. The cage is not only physical, it's perception itself. Outsiders never ask what you feel. They see crookedness and assume emptiness, never realizing a storm of thought exists behind still eyes. Pain becomes normal, so familiar you stop calling it pain. Knees aching against wood, back pressing against crooked chair, fingers twitching endlessly. These are simply parts of daily survival within your trapped form. Food arrives, simple meals set before you. Eating becomes labor, each bite a negotiation with trembling hands and reluctant jaw. Still, you consume slowly, proof that survival persists even when dignity falters. Brothers don't correct you. They understand without words. One drops plates too, another rocks until furniture shakes. In this house, broken motions are not mocked. They're simply the language of shared endurance. Night does not bring relief. The mattress dips. Spine bows further. Joints ache beneath weight. Sleep comes not as rest but as surrender, another cycle beginning when light filters through cracks. Sometimes you hum quietly to yourself, a sound rising from chest. It isn't melody, but release, a reminder that sound still exists within you even when words will never form. Outsiders see strangeness where you see survival. They record, photograph, label, unaware that enduring inside this cage is strength they couldn't match for an hour, let alone a lifetime bound by crooked bones. The body is fragile, yet unyielding in its refusal to stop. Each day it carries you through routines, not with grace, but persistence, a stubborn insistence on existing despite limitations imposed long before. When others laugh from screens, they laugh at the cage, never realizing the spirit inside remains whole. Silence doesn't erase identity, Crooked stairs don't erase thought. You remain even when unseen. Your spine curves like the roof beams above, sagging but unbroken. Shoulders stoop forward, chest heavy, but you remain upright. Each posture tells history of men trapped by lineage, yet still standing. Every breath carries effort, chest rising against resistance. Breathing is never effortless, always conscious. Yet each inhalation becomes victory. Another moment stolen from silence, another second endured within uncooperative flesh. The cage grows tighter with age, movements slow, tremors worsen, pain deepens. But inside remains willpower. Though body betrays, mind refuses surrender. Survival isn't ease, it's persistence, continuing when others would collapse. Brothers mirror struggles differently. One hums louder when pain grows. Another shouts without words, body twitching wildly. Together you form an orchestra of discomfort, each sound evidence of lives trapped yet enduring. Your world shrinks to familiar furniture. The chair molded to your shape, the table dented by dropped spoons, the hallway walls polished smooth by steadying hands, all become extensions of your body. The television flickers endlessly, bright images foreign to you. Yet they remind you life outside exists, where bodies cooperate. Still, your cage keeps you watching silently, aware you'll never step beyond. A brother brushes past, humming steadily. You respond with a hum of your own, two cages acknowledging one another, two men enduring the same confinement together without words, without need for explanation. At times you wish outsiders could feel the weight, not pity but understanding. Just 1 hour inside, this body would collapse them. Yet you endure days, years, decades, proving endurance surpasses strength. The cage defines perception, but not identity. Though body fails, though voice never arrives, though movements betray intention, you remain more than crooked bones. Existence itself becomes quiet defiance against judgment. Each scar of inheritance is visible in posture, in face, in trembling hands. Yet scars are proof of survival. They mark battles endured daily, victories no outsider ever witnesses directly. The house echoes with creaks of men moving awkwardly. Each shuffle, each grunt is language enough. Within silence, communication thrives, even if outsiders hear only noise, never understanding the depth beneath. Your body may never align, never obey, never perform as others expect. Yet it carries you each day regardless. The cage is confining, but it is also survival, however imperfect. When night falls again, you return to crooked mattress, body aching. You hum softly, a lullaby of endurance. The cage doesn't silence you completely. It proves you remain alive within it. The world beyond may never understand. They see weakness, tragedy, strangeness. But inside this cage, you live still. Each breath, each movement, each hum is defiance against the silence they imagine defines you. This chapter of life is not about loss, but endurance. The body as a cage does not erase the man within. The cage confines, yes, but the spirit inside endures beyond measure. The house breathes with the presence of men who rarely speak, yet fill the space with sounds only they understand. Silence is broken not by conversation, but by grunts, hums, and restless movements. One brother rocks endlessly on the edge of his chair, body swaying like a pendulum. Another lets out sudden barks that rattle the walls. Together, their rhythms form a language outsiders cannot decipher. Daily life unfolds without words. A hum signals hunger. A bark signals agitation. A shuffle across the floor means someone needs space. Brothers read these signs instinctively, a shared understanding deeper than speech. The eldest brother takes charge quietly, not through commands, but through action. He prepares simple meals, sets food down, and steadies the house. His role is silent leadership, a presence holding everyone together. In this house, conversation is replaced with ritual. Each brother moves through patterns repeated so often they become choreography. The humming, rocking, and staring are not random. Their communication disguised as survival. Visitors arrive with cameras, hoping to capture strangeness. What they miss is connection. The brothers hum to one another across the room, exchanging more meaning in soundless vibrations than outsiders ever could. A younger brother mimics the older, repeating hums with subtle variations. It's not imitation, but conversation in its own form. Their bond deepens with every sound echoed back, an unspoken dialogue of survival. Meals are a gathering, though no words pass between them. Plates clatter, spoons scrape, and hums rumble softly. In those sounds exists community, proof that silence doesn't erase the bonds of brotherhood. One man barks suddenly, startling even himself. Another glances sideways, grinning without words, then hums in reply. The moment passes, small but meaningful, a reminder that their shared stillness carries hidden humor. In the evenings, the television glows, voices spilling into the room. The brothers don't follow the stories, but they watch together. The flickering light becomes their shared stage, something beyond themselves, silently observed. Every brother carries his own form of expression. One hums like a steady drone, another twitches head sharply, another lets out guttural grunts. Together, their differences create a chorus of survival. The silence outsiders interpret as emptiness is, in truth, dense with communication. Each man knows the other's rhythm, can sense agitation, hunger, or fear without a word. They exist in mutual awareness. When strangers visit, the balance shifts. The brothers grow tense, movements sharper, hums louder. The outside gaze disrupts their rhythm, reminding them their stillness is entertainment for others, but life for themselves. The eldest brother steadies them afterward, guiding them back into routine. His presence is anchor-like, though unspoken. He doesn't need words to remind them that silence is theirs to control again. In the house, silence is not absence. It is presence, thick as the walls. It holds every man together, shaping their existence. Without words, they are bound tighter than any talking family. Children from outside might laugh at the hums and barks, but the brothers never laugh at each other. Their stillness demands respect inside the house, an unspoken rule of shared endurance. The rocking chair groans beneath constant motion, yet it never breaks. It becomes part of the brother who rocks endlessly, the rhythm of wood against floor marking the passing hours in silence. Even in sleep, the house isn't quiet. One brother hums faintly in dreams, another breathes heavily, another shifts endlessly. Silence here is never complete. It's filled with the constant pulse of survival. The hums aren't music to outsiders, but within these walls they become lullabies, reassurance that no man here is alone. Each vibration means presence. Each sound means someone still endures nearby. When one brother grows agitated, rocking violently, others adjust instinctively. A glance, a hum, a shared rhythm calms the storm. No instructions are given. Understanding is woven so deep words were never needed. Brothers are mirrors of one another, each carrying variations of the same inherited marks. Crooked stares, slanted jaws, restless bodies. They see themselves reflected in one another and find comfort in shared strangeness. The television flickers brighter when outsiders appear on screen, yet no one speaks. Brothers simply hum louder, filling the house with their own sound, drowning out a world that doesn't belong to them. One day, a brother drops a plate, shattering porcelain across the floor. No scolding follows. Instead, another hums softly, a reassurance that mistakes mean nothing here, that survival matters more than perfection. Their silence has become armor. Outsiders may mock, label, or stare, but inside the house, silence protects them, creating a barrier where only brothers understand each other's struggles without judgment. Every man's movement has meaning. A shuffle toward the door signals restlessness. A hum near the stove signals hunger. A sudden bark signals irritation. Patterns replace words, and brothers decode them instinctively. Sometimes one hums a little louder and the others answer. The exchange grows into something almost like a song, a chorus of survival that fills the room with shared resonance. The rocking brother continues day after day, body swaying endlessly. He doesn't tire, doesn't stop, because movement is language. Without it, his silence would feel unbearable. His rhythm keeps him alive. When outsiders watch videos later, they see oddities. What they miss are the quiet glances, the shared hums, the subtle touches of understanding that bind brothers together in ways words never could. Each man bears the weight of inheritance differently, but together they bear it lighter. Their hums overlap, their silences merge, their routines align, creating something stronger than the cages they inhabit individually. The eldest brother walks slower these days, joints stiff. Still, he carries responsibility, setting the rhythm others follow. His silence speaks loudest, teaching without words how to endure another day together. In the stillness, humor exists. A grunt answered by a hum becomes a joke. A twitch answered by rocking becomes play. Outsiders wouldn't laugh, but the brothers find comfort in shared moments. Silence has not broken them. It has defined them. Within it, they've built a world outsiders can't enter, a language outsiders can't learn. In this world, brotherhood thrives without a single spoken word. The hum of one brother echoes through hallways, answered faintly from another room. These sounds carry farther than shouts, binding the men across distance. Silence isn't empty. It's a thread linking them constantly. Meals always end the same. Plates pushed aside, hums fading, rocking slowing. The brothers settle back into their chairs, silent but united. No grace spoken, yet gratitude shared in the stillness. When one brother falls asleep, the others instinctively quiet their sounds, hums softening, rocking slowing. The respect is unspoken, yet undeniable. Their silence protects even rest, as though guarding each other's peace. The house itself feels like a brother. Its groaning boards, sagging walls, and flickering lights join the chorus, echoing alongside hums and grunts, binding itself into the silent fraternity of endurance. At night, when the camera leaves and darkness settles, silence feels thickest. Yet it isn't loneliness, it's presence, a heavy reminder that brothers share the stillness together, surviving where outsiders never could. Brothers in stillness remain unseen for who they truly are. Outsiders label, misunderstand, dismiss. Yet within silence, they endure together, their unspoken bond louder than any language spoken beyond these walls. The chapter of their lives is not tragedy, but communion. In silence, they discovered brotherhood. In stillness, they found connection. Together they continue, humming, rocking, and surviving as one unbreakable family of men. The first time the camera entered the house, the brothers didn't understand its purpose. A man carried a black box, smiling, pointing, speaking words that meant nothing. The device watched while they remained silent. The lens captured crooked stares, twitching hands, rocking bodies. It didn't ask questions. It didn't wait for answers. It simply recorded, turning survival into spectacle, making private silence visible to the world. Brothers didn't resist. They sat in their usual chairs, moving through familiar routines. The camera lingered on each twitch and hum, framing endurance as entertainment, transforming existence into something for strangers to consume. The man with the camera spoke kindly, promising help. He said the world needed to see, but his kindness didn't reach the brothers' ears. His words evaporated into the thick silence. Later, millions watched. Screens across the world flickered with images of men in silence. Outsiders gawked, laughed, pitied. None of them knew what it felt like to live within those walls. The camera returned often, always uninvited, always accepted. The brothers didn't question its presence because questioning required words. They endured its gaze, just as they endured crooked spines, trembling hands, and endless silence. For the man behind the lens, the house became a story. For the brothers, nothing changed. They still hummed, rocked, shuffled. Life continued unchanged, though the world now watched their every gesture. Outsiders labeled them instantly. Headlines called them the most inbred family. Comments speculated about intelligence, mocked their sounds, debated their worth. The brothers never read a word, never heard voices laughing online. Sometimes visitors arrived in cars, cameras raised. They stared from outside fences, pointing, whispering. The brothers inside didn't react. They were used to stares. Outsiders had always looked, only now with screens. The eldest brother grew tense when strangers knocked. He pulled curtains closed, shuffled them away from windows, hummed louder to drown voices. He couldn't stop the camera, but he could protect routine. Every flicker of the camera drained energy. After filming, the house felt heavier. Silence deepened, hums quieted, rocking slowed. Even the dog outside barked less, unsettled by intrusion into their hidden world. The lens showed faces, but not feelings. It caught crooked jaws, but not endurance. It magnified stillness, but not spirit. Outsiders thought they knew the men, but they only knew frames. The brothers never refused filming, not because they wanted it, but because they didn't know refusal. Silence had no word for consent. So the camera stayed, and silence carried it silently. Donations came after videos spread. Clothes, food, canned goods, promises of help. Strangers sent items they believed were kindness. The brothers accepted silently, never asking, never understanding the reason for generosity. Outsiders debated whether filming was cruel. Some called it poverty porn. Others claimed awareness. Inside the house, debates never reached. Brothers hummed and rocked, living exactly as before, untouched by arguments. One brother grew fascinated by the camera's red light, humming louder whenever it blinked. Another barked at the reflection, mistaking himself for an intruder. The device became part of daily rhythms. The man behind the lens believed he was giving them voice. In reality, he captured their silence and packaged it for curiosity. What he thought was exposure became exploitation disguised as help. Each recording froze moments forever. A twitch, a crooked glance, a hum, all dissected by strangers online. People speculated about conditions without understanding that silence carried lives, not diagnoses, within its walls. Sometimes cars drove past slowly, windows rolled down. Outsiders hoped to glimpse what screens had shown. Brothers inside didn't look back. Their world was small enough without adding strangers' curiosity pressing in. Tourists knocked, laughing, hoping for responses. They didn't receive words. Only silence answered. Sometimes a bark, sometimes a hum, but never the explanations they wanted. Silence was all the brothers had. The camera didn't capture exhaustion, but it existed. Muscles stiffened more after days of filming. Shoulders slumped further. Eyes blinked slower. Stillness grew heavier. The body endured not just pain, but intrusion. Outsiders called them content. They became thumbnails, headlines, viral stories. Yet inside the house, they remained what they had always been. Brothers surviving quietly, existing without demand, enduring without recognition. The man promised understanding, but delivered entertainment. The lens wasn't built to translate silence. It was built to record surfaces. And surfaces were all the world wanted. Crooked faces without unseen endurance. At night, when cameras left, routines returned. Hums filled the house again. Rocking chairs groaned. Plates clattered. Life continued unchanged. The spectacle ended for outsiders, but survival remained for the brothers. The eldest brother never trusted the lens fully. He felt its gaze heavier than outsiders' stares. He moved slower during filming, shielding others with his body, making silence itself into a defense. One brother once reached toward the lens, fingers trembling, eyes unfocused. He touched the black box, then retreated. No words exchanged, but that gesture said more than any headline ever printed. The world turned their lives into a mirror for itself. Outsiders pointed, judged, pitied. None could survive a day inside the cage of silence, yet all believed they understood it completely. Filming blurred privacy until it ceased existing. Every twitch became evidence, every hum became spectacle. The brothers never asked for attention, but they received it endlessly, without choice, without escape. Sometimes the man behind the lens cried quietly, overwhelmed by what he recorded. But tears changed nothing. He left with footage, leaving behind the same silence, the same routines, the same cages. The brothers never hated the camera. They never loved it either. They endured it, as they endured crooked bones, endless aches, and ceaseless silence. It became another weight. Nothing more, nothing less. For outsiders, the footage confirmed myths. For the brothers, nothing needed confirmation. Their lives were already known to them. Hums instead of words, rocking instead of walking, silence instead of explanation. Strangers called them monsters, angels, tragedies, miracles. They were none of these. They were men, existing daily, surviving routines, enduring silence. Labels belonged to outsiders. Inside, they remained only themselves. The camera returned season after season, capturing winter's cold, summer's heat. Each visit changed nothing. The brothers didn't mark seasons by footage, but by aches in joints, by sounds of trees outside. What the camera never showed was strength. Outsiders saw weakness, but true strength was endurance. Every day survived without words, every meal consumed despite tremors, every hum exchanged proved resilience beyond measure. The lens could never capture brotherhood. It saw only bodies, never bonds. Outsiders missed the subtle glance, the shared hum, the calming touch. Brotherhood thrived invisibly, beyond the reach of any recording. Filming continued, the world watched, curiosity spread. Yet inside the house, silence remained king. The brothers endured together, humming, rocking, breathing, surviving, not for the lens, not for outsiders, but for themselves alone. Each morning arrives without ceremony. Light filters through cracked windows, landing across faces that rarely change expression. Survival is not marked by plans or ambitions, but by the simple act of rising again. The brothers sit in their usual places, bodies molded into chairs by years of stillness. Their silence is heavy but not empty. Every breath is proof of life continuing despite circumstance. Endurance here is not about glory or recognition. It's about persistence when the world refuses to listen, when outsiders reduce existence to spectacle. The brothers remain, unmoved, living quietly in their own rhythm. One hum resonates through the house, answered softly from across the room. The exchange is brief but meaningful, a reminder that connection exists in ways outsiders will never decode or appreciate. The dog barks outside, echoing across the hills. Inside, no one reacts. The men have heard it countless times before. Silence swallows the sound, restoring the still rhythm that defines their world. Time does not move forward here, it loops, repeating like the family tree that created them. Seasons shift, but life inside remains consistent. Hums, grunts, rocking chairs, meals placed without request. Outsiders wonder how men endure without ambition, without words. They fail to see endurance itself is the achievement. Each day survived within cages of bone, and silence is victory beyond measure. The eldest brother watches over the rest, guiding with presence alone. He doesn't need speech to steady them. His silence is strength, an unspoken reminder that survival is shared, never solitary. Meals arrive again, simple but sufficient. Plates clatter against the worn table. Trembling hands reach carefully. No prayers spoken, no gratitude voiced, yet unspoken thankfulness exists in the quiet exchange of glances. The house itself bears scars of endurance. Sagging beams, peeling paint, flickering lights. Yet it remains standing, sheltering men whose bodies echo the same struggle. The house and brothers endure together. Some days ache more than others. Joints lock, tremors worsen, breaths grow heavier. Still, life continues. Pain is constant, but acceptance of it transforms suffering into routine, making endurance possible every morning. One brother rocks endlessly, rhythm steady as heartbeat. Another hums like a low engine. Their sounds weave together, filling silence with life. Outsiders hear noise, but inside it's the sound of resilience. The television glows again, images foreign but mesmerizing. Faces on screen speak words that mean nothing here. Still, brothers watch, reminded briefly of a world they will never step into. Endurance is misunderstood. Outsiders think it means suffering silently. Here, it means continuing regardless, making silence a shield, making repetition a language, making stillness a way of surviving when nothing else remains. The man with the camera returns. Brothers don't resist, don't welcome. They simply remain. He believes he captures truth, but truth lives deeper than lenses, in the unrecorded strength of daily endurance. Comments flood online, labeling, judging, mocking. The brothers never hear them, never read them. Their silence protects them from cruelty, sparing them from outsiders who would collapse in hours under their reality. The world frames them as tragedy, but tragedy implies choice lost. Here, there was never choice. There was only inheritance, isolation, and endurance carried silently through bodies that refused to yield completely. One brother hums louder when discomfort rises. Another slaps his hand against the wall when restless. These gestures aren't symptoms. They are communication, survival strategies honed across generations of silence. Night arrives without fanfare. The house grows dim. Brothers shuffle toward beds worn thin by years. Silence deepens again, punctuated by humming breaths and creaking boards, a nightly lullaby of persistence. No dreams of future come here. The present is enough. The act of existing today ensures tomorrow will follow. In this way, endurance becomes the only legacy, the only promise fulfilled. Outsiders measure quality of life with words, ambitions, accomplishments. By those scales, the brothers fall short, but endurance is its own measure, one outsiders overlook, one that defines strength in silence. The eldest remembers burying brothers long gone, lost in infancy, lost in sickness, lost in silence. Each grave is a reminder that survival itself is rare, each breath a fragile triumph. Silence thickens when memories stir. Yet even without words, grief lives in the house. A hum held longer than usual, a slower rocking, small signs of mourning only brothers can read. The hills outside remain constant, shielding the house like prison walls. Roads rarely bring change. Outsiders may arrive, but the world beyond remains distant, irrelevant to the daily act of survival. Inside, the men endure together. Their routines overlap, Their hums intertwine, their silences merge. They may be isolated, but they are not alone. Brotherhood itself is the strongest shield against despair. Every twitch of the eye, every tremor of the hand, every grunt that escapes carries meaning here. Outsiders miss it. Only brothers understand the full depth hidden within stillness. Visitors see deformity. Brothers see familiarity. Visitors hear nonsense. Brothers hear conversation. Visitors see tragedy. Brothers see endurance. Two worlds exist in one house, divided by silence outsiders will never penetrate. The endurance isn't passive, it's active, demanding effort every hour. Trembling hands still reach for food. Crooked spines still rise from beds. Silent lips still hum. Every act is resistance against collapse. Some days laughter exists, though not in words. A bark answered by a hum becomes humor. A twitch mirrored becomes play. Outsiders wouldn't notice, but inside, joy survives quietly. Even as bodies weaken further, silence grows heavier. Endurance doesn't falter. The brothers remain. They live not for outsiders, not for cameras, but because existing itself has become their greatest victory. What outsiders call strange, the brothers call life. What outsiders call suffering, the brothers call routine. What outsiders call silence, the brothers call language. Their endurance transforms judgment into misunderstanding. Each breath, though labored, affirms existence. Each hum, though wordless, affirms connection. Each glance, though crooked, affirms brotherhood. The endurance here is quiet, but unbreakable, a constant defiance against a world that doesn't understand. The man with the camera may continue filming. Strangers may continue judging. But silence inside remains sovereign. Endurance continues without their approval, without their comprehension, without their recognition. Morning will come again, as always. Brothers will rise stiffly, sit in chairs, hum in rhythms. Outsiders won't see victory in this, but survival itself is victory, repeated endlessly with each new dawn. The cage of silence has not crushed spirit, it has shaped it. Within crooked bodies and wordless mouths lives an endurance outsiders could never replicate, a strength hidden behind stillness. In the end, endurance is not extraordinary here. It is ordinary. It is daily life, repeated hum by hum, breath by breath. Brothers endure not to inspire, but simply because they must. This is endurance beyond understanding. It isn't glamorous, it isn't triumphant, but it is real. The brothers remain, silent yet unbroken, proving every day that survival itself is the strongest story ever lived.